Sup, guys? Someone said they disagreed with some of my takes, and they were pretty respectful about it. Paid actor. So, I had a conversation with them about their disagreements. I changed the pitch of their voice because they wanted to remain anonymous, but I've added subtitles in case it's hard to understand what they're saying. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Okay, I'm recording. Be careful what you say. So, you said you're my biggest hater, right?
No, I wouldn't say so.
You do hate me, yes?
Not really. I just disagree with you on a few things.
Okay then, my self-proclaimed biggest hater. Let's see what you've got for me.
In one of your Naruto meta videos, after you got your LA9, you said your fleet had a 100% kill rate. But I saw in your Discord posting screenshots and complaining that you were missing one-shots. So was that a lie?
Okay, well, that's true. And that's pretty true. I wouldn't say I lied, because the attempts that I did do looked quite promising, as well as the fleets that were a little worse from before. But it ended up being the case that you could low roll pretty badly due to Mogador missing too many stabs, or because Nagato had a pretty high evasion rate compared to most bosses.
So why didn't you make an update saying that it wasn't 100% consistent?
That probably would have been appropriate, but I just didn't see a need to. Let's say that someone tried it to replicate my fleet and then finds out that it doesn't clear 100% of the time as advertised. At least they have a pretty good starting point to further improve it, I would think.
But if someone makes the fleet expecting it to be guaranteed, aren't you just wasting their time and resources?
The fleet you're talking about features 6 of the most commonly used ships in the game for bossing, and the equipment is also mostly conventional, apart from maybe the plus 13 auxiliaries on Mogador. They're not completely irreplaceable, so I don't think it would be wasting anyone's resources.
I guess.
If a better fleet exists, I'm not forcing anyone to use mine, and I'll also just say that my fleets are not completely min-maxed. I optimize my fleets until they get to a point that I'm personally satisfied, and then I share it. There's nothing really stopping anyone from making further changes to it, to improve it or adapt it to what they have. Also, it's not like I'm charging people money and failing to deliver on my promise, so I don't think it's that serious. I'll avoid saying 100% consistent in the future when it might not be though. Okay, what else you got?
Give me a sec. I'm looking through your videos. Okay, so do you actually think Perseus is worse than Akashi?
Is that really what you got from my videos?
Yep.
I feel like I already beat this topic to death, but I guess some people still don't really understand. We can agree that Perseus' heals are particularly good because they heal the main fleet more than other healers, but her Vanguard heals are actually not that special, right?
Sure.
Okay, my point has always been this. In the most difficult stages where healing is at its most important, Perseus is a detriment on your fleet compared to just bringing another ship that doesn't necessarily even have to be a healer, but just provide a good amount of damage. The reason people think that Perseus is good is because they see their main fleet dying, and in a vacuum, Perseus' heals are the best for the main fleet, but you have to realize that the reason your main fleet ships are dying is because 1, you're not killing the enemies that are dealing damage to your main fleet, or 2, you don't have enough anti-air. In both cases, Perseus doesn't really help in any way.
I feel like most of the time when I'm using Perseus, my damage still seems fine.
Well, when you have ammo, it's not that big of a deal to have a stacked enough fleet to carry Perseus. But once you run out of ammo in chapters 14 and 15, it becomes kind of obvious, and that's where the comparison between Perseus and Akashi can be drawn. Like, obviously, in chapters 13 and below, it's not really that big of a deal if you have 1 dead weight in your fleet, but in Chapter 14 and 15, if you run out of ammo, there's no way that the 7% healing she gives your main fleet at the beginning of each fight, and at most 18% throughout an entire battle, is going to offset the amount of damage you're going to take from the enemy battleships for not having enough damage to kill them in time. Just watch your main fleet ship's HP when one of them gets set on fire. And that's really what I was trying to show with the video comparing Akashi to Perseus, but maybe it's just my skill issue.
But why did you use both Unicorn and Perseus together instead of replacing the Unicorn with Perseus?
Well, Unicorn is more accessible and costs less resources to upgrade, and she also performs better in pretty much every way. You're free to use Perseus as a replacement for Unicorn, and that would probably be better than using them together, but I don't think it's really worth mentioning. If you already raised Unicorn to the max and are just looking for other ships to raise, then Perseus will be one of the easiest, but if you only make decisions based on what I say explicitly, you're gonna need more help outside of just fleet building.
I'm looking at your tier list right now.
Which one?
The carriers one.
Okay.
You have Implacable in S tier, and AVP and Arc Royal in the tiers below. But by the same logic, there's no reason to use the other two when you have Implacable, right?
The difference here is that Arc Royal and AVP are more accessible, and there are players who don't have Implacable, so I think that they're worth a mention. If you look at Impero and Idol Akagi, for example, I haven't properly tiered them because Independence is much more accessible and covers the same role better, so I probably won't ever get around to properly tiering them.
Okay, final question. You said that Albacore is not worth using, even with Flash and Archerfish, after your most recent submarine test.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think I recommended U556 Meta or Da Vinci.
Have you thought about how subs aren't always in range, and can't always get off all their torpedoes even if they have enough reload?
True.
Albacore's extra oxygen gives her more time to fire her torpedoes consistently, which I think makes her better than the two you recommended.
That's a good point. I was going to mention it if I ever made another video on submarines, but I don't really care all that much about submarines, even less now than before. But you're definitely right about that, and Albacore is easier to toss into the subfleet with Archer, Fish, and Flasher, and just forget about. So anything else you want to say?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head right now.
I won.